Attention all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, essayist Eric Levine, and I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So I've given my points about the Trump deal with the MOU with Iran. Eric has given his thoughts and his analysis as well. Now we turn to Jesse for his thoughts. And we have not lobbied Jesse in any way, Let the Record Show, at the break. So Jesse, you're free to say anything you want within reason.
Thank you, within reason. So let me just begin. I want to thank the anchor and our co-host, Eric, for saving me from an embarrassing moment as we were leading into this segment. The archives will save that somewhere, and it'll be probably listened to years from now, and we can all laugh at me after I'm gone. But just
we'll put a time capsule.
We're laughing at you now, but that's okay.
Eric, would you let the man do some substance? Go.
A politician with substance. Okay, here we go. So in my 35 years of professional politics, the one thing I've known, no matter where you are at any level, is that whenever you have an understanding, an agreement, an MOU, in this case, there's always going to be an outcry of opposition to it. And rightfully so. That's a part of it and such. I think that any type of deal was going to bring some opposition to it. But let me just point out to you, I want to echo, Your Honor, what you said and what Eric said at the start of your critique of the MOU. The fact that the president has done what needs to be done militarily. He has done everything that he needed to do with leading in terms of Midnight Hammer and the True Fury campaigns, both economic and militarily and such. And what Eric said was that he equated it to it being a marathon. And that this is a case where the marathoner stopped maybe 325 feet from the finish line. I will share with you that I don't believe that the marathon is over. I believe that this 60-day pause, for one reason or another, is not going to last 60 days. History has demonstrated that. The actions and the antics of the Iranian regime have demonstrated that. I do believe that both parties and everyone involved here are playing chess and not checkers. But I do believe that the president is looking at this at a more three-dimensional situation. Do I believe, as someone who's a political chair, that there's some politics that is playing into this? Absolutely. I don't believe he's governing from that point of view, but I understand that always has a rationale. So let's understand, it's only 60 days and it can be broken at any time. Regardless of what this agreement says, it does not bind Israel from undertaking its defense of its nation and its people, whether it's in Lebanon or other areas. And I believe that that's going to continue, and it must continue for the Israeli people, because they are our strongest ally in the area, our only ally in the area. But I also want to straight to what the president said in the G7 meeting in France. He said that if they're acting badly, and that's very plain speaking terms, he will continue to bomb them. And I believe that the best use of that is that if the renowned Israeli intelligence agency, Mossad, or any other trusted U.S. allied intelligence agency shares information, including our own intelligence gathering apparatuses, that Iran, to use the president's word, is acting badly, that the fury of the American military will once again be on the deck. The other thing I want to take forward is I think that what both of you said is right, is that I think the world, not just Iran, has seen how important a blockade or the Strait of Hormuz is. Let's not discount the fact that during whatever pause is there, and maybe I've read too many Tom Clancy novels, he's my favorite author, that during that time period, that the operations to permanently keep the Strait of Hormuz open and to protect it from being mined, and maybe in this case, since there are European assets from France, from Britain, now in the area, including minesweepers, that there will be a larger presence there so that this could not be repeated as a tool by Iran. I think that those considerations have to move forward here. And as I said, at any time, this MOU, which is really truly not binding because at one point or another, any one of the parties can declare the other in violation. But again, I would submit to both of you that the one thing that this is that it is a marathon. I don't believe, and I submit to you that this marathon is not over. It's still being run. Maybe at a slower pace and such because they just added on maybe an extra mile or two to this marathon. But it's still a marathon that is not over. I believe it's going to give this time that's needed to clear and take away the tools that Iran has demonstrated will use, that has had an impact on our allies in Europe, and will make sure that permanently can't be used again. And once again, I want to reiterate what you both opened up and said, that the operations that we've done militarily, the operations that have been done economically, first and foremost, whatever type of flowing of currency or funding is not going to replace immediately. It's not going to be on top of whatever coffers they have. The Iranian economy and their budgets have been blown. Not to be ironic there. So they're really starting from below zero. So that was my assessment that I would share with both of you.
Well, my problem is that Iran will take the opportunity with delays to reconstitute itself.
Well, especially with the money that's going to be coming in, the oil money that's going to be coming in.
They can have money which they can spend. They'll spend it the way they want.
And the fact that England's there and France is there.
Yeah, who've done nothing.
Well, even if they do something, let's remember how they close the strait. They don't close the strait by massing their navy and blockading it. They put in a couple of mines, they lob in a couple of missiles, and they leave it to the insurance companies to refuse to insure.
Yeah, Lloyd's of London.
But Eric and Your Honor, that's my point. As we've always said when we've talked about other conflicts in the world, we've always said the one entity that's always watching everything and learning from is China. I do believe in this case that the United States and its allies have learned from Iran in how they're going to conduct themselves. So what you just said, to be able to remove those mines, now to take the steps to ensure that those mines not be replaced. The fact that we can then go after their surface-to-air missile banks that you have just mentioned, it gives us the opportunity. Also, it allows our allies, who have said, they're cowards. They're, Europe and all these European nations who depend on the Strait of Hormuz, by the way, are cowards. They said they really couldn't get involved unless there was a cessation of hostilities. Well, they have no excuse now, and their presence to clear that area along with the American military will allow there to be a presence there under no hostilities, so that they can go back to their constituencies and said, we're not taking part in this. We're just ensuring the MOU goes forward, because politics happens there too, bad as it is, and it allows that presence to be there. It prevents the mining of those of the strait once again, or at least makes it far more difficult for it to happen. And again, I submit that it does not mean that our military is going back to its home docks and returning back to base. It's not. The presence is going to be there.
Well, 2 points. One is the Iranians also have these drones that they can close it with. Look, the insurance companies...
Everyone's got drones now.
Right, I understand. That's the point. The Iranians have these drones, and the insurance companies, to the extent that they're concerned that any of these ships are going to go down, they're not going to insure them. And some of these ships, as Trump correctly points out, are like $1 billion. So no one's just going to go through the strait. So that's the first point. But the second point, once all this money starts flowing in, the Iranians are going to start reconstituting what they're going to do. But whether or not we use our military, I think, is a secondary factor to whether or not the Iranians believe we will. And I think there's sufficient evidence to indicate that we may not. And the other thing I'm concerned about, I hope I'm wrong. Okay, I disagree. Reasonable people can disagree on that. I understand. Mm-hmm. But what I'm also concerned about is, let's look at Taiwan for a second. If I'm China and I'm watching this, one of the things a reasonable interpretation to walk away from, we hope the Chinese don't reach this conclusion, but they could, is that if we were to invade Taiwan, We just have to be there long enough for the Americans to lose interest or give up. They don't like protracted conflicts. In the wake of Iraq and Afghanistan, they just don't like protracted conflicts. So if we can just stay long enough, the Americans will leave, which means that it increases the likelihood that they will attack Taiwan. That is one way the Chinese could see this.
And let me just...
I don't disagree with you with that, but what I will say is that you just described any type of war, conflict, military action with the American people, with a democracy or a constitutional republic or a free society. You're right. If the constituency gets uninterested, whether it's in America or any other free living country, that's the balance that has to be weighed. It does not mean, though, that our leaders, stick their finger in the air and see which winds are going, and that's the way they go, or be driven by polls. No, they're hired. They're elected because they're to be strong. They're supposed to lead.
Yeah, but the only one, Jesse, respectfully, the only one who's done any real leadership on this issue, to his credit, is Donald Trump. And they're playing the long. But the Iranians, like the Chinese, they play the long game. They figure,
what happens in 2.5 years when Trump leaves?
Trump is history.
Do you think for one second that Pete Buttigieg or Kamala Harris or AOC or some other DSA commie American hating Jew hater is going to attack Iran? No, they're going to attack Israel if they attack anybody.
Absolutely not. I completely agree with you. That was the one point I didn't get to in my in this part of the discussion, is that, and one of the things, and both of you have brought it up, so I didn't really touch upon it, is that the MOU, 60 days or otherwise, doesn't extend past the term of this Republican president. And if a Democrat gets in office, any Democrat gets in office, it will be unilaterally different than what the Trump administration or any Republican within the party structure, not the Tucker Carlsons of the world, because they don't represent the party. They don't speak for the party. They're one voice that's trying to get clicks, trying to get revenue, so he can have his high-style livelihood and living conditions and such. Republicans that understand this, like Marco Rubio and others, that's why this is like, when you say it's a long game for America, too. The long game is past 2028, where a Democrat does not take the White House, does not take control of the House of Representatives or the Senate combined, so that they can reverse all the good, whether it be in the Middle East or whether it be here at home.
Let me just say, I always felt
that's the long game.
I was always feeling better when I was watching Marco Rubio on TV talking about this. That always gave me a sense of comfort. I have to say,
no, honestly, we just have a couple of minutes in this segment. I just want to make a couple of points. Number one, I think if there's been a failure here, is that as they said in the movie Cool Hand Luke, what we have here is a failure of communication. I don't think
failure to communicate.
No, we have a failure.
We have a failure to communicate.
I'll have to look that up.
Okay.
Okay. You know who said that?
I'll bet you dinner.
Strother Martin.
All right.
Strother Martin.
I'll bet you dinner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You bet me dinner. You owe me dinner anyway. What's it? No. Okay.
Where do I get dinner?
Well, you come into the city and you have dinner. It's our honor and privilege to split the check to support you and the Republican Party out in Suffolk.